Yongcan Liu. Yongcan Liu is a professor of applied linguistics and language education at the University of Cambridge and convener of Cambridge Research in Community Language Education Network. He has published widely on language of schooling and the knowledge base of teaching in context of mobility and diversity. He's the co-author of the Bell Foundation's EAL assessment framework for schools. And his most recent book, co-authored, entitled Language Development and Social Integration of Students with EAL, was published with CUP in 2020. He recently served on the academic advisory board for the Cambridge UNICEF Microsoft Learning Passport project and is involved in developing the global curriculum framework for refugee children. And as we have heard today, he will be talking to us about partnerships as a resource, enabling heritage language maintenance through home, community, school, university partnerships. If you have any questions, please feel free to put these in the chat box at the bottom.
Okay, so can you hear me okay? Yes, okay, thanks very much. I'm going to now share the slide now.
Thank you.
Is that okay now?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. Well, thank you very much again for the invitation, and also it's a very generous introduction. It's actually a great honor to give this talk at the 2023 European Conference on Heritage Language Education, which is a topic which is always very close to my heart. It's also a very privilege, it's a great privilege to be able to listen to and to learn from colleagues in the audience. I know many of whom actually work in the community setting, so it's a really great privilege. Thank you very much for the invitation again. The title of my talk is Partnerships as a Resource, and I'm going to look at home school community university partnerships with my experience, drawing on my experience of CRiCLE, which is an initiative which I set up about 10 years ago. And so I'm going to draw on my experience to talk about the university school partnership. So I'm going to talk for about 30 minutes. And I also want to thank my collaborators and the partnership schools for their contributions, and particularly Dr. Anke Friedrich for her permission to use some of the materials. Right, I'll start with the concept of community-based heritage language education, which refers to a particular type of schooling. Formal and informal might not be the best way to describe this type of schooling. I would say non-formal is probably a better way to describe this type of schooling. There are many terms which are related to this particular type of schooling. For example, community language education, heritage language school, bilingual community ethnic school, supplementary and complementary school, Saturday, Sunday school, and weekend school, for example. And according to Li Wei's work, for example, in 2006, there are 3 types of schools, including, for example, preserving linguistic and cultural heritage, compensating for inadequate mainstream education, for example, the GCSE and A-level preparation courses in the UK, for example, and preparing students to challenge racism and discrimination. And as you can see in the drawings on this slide, completed by my collaborator, Dr. Lottie Hall, in one of our projects. So she visited a range of heritage language schools, and she did the drawing based on her observations. As you can see in the drawings, the activities are very diverse: music, dancing, reading, storytelling, and the context of teaching heritage language education, heritage language in a community setting is very, very diverse and complex. So now let's have a look at what the literature actually says about heritage language education, given the limited time. I'm going to just give you a very short critique on the field. So there is a general concern about fast erosion of linguistic capital and the languages crisis as a result of the government, the lack of government support and intervention and investment. So the policy debate tends to focus on two questions. The first question is whether heritage language has a role to play in the education of bilingual pupils. And if so, who should take the responsibility for teaching it? So the questions are always very controversial. So the first question is very straightforward. So the evidence from the cognitive, linguistic, and educational research on bilingual advantages, for example, Bialystok's work is very well known, and the benefits of bilingualism, economic and educational, cognitive, and so on, has provided very strong support for maintaining heritage languages. Yet the debate regarding who should teach it is quite ideological. So in other words, the main message is it good? Yes, it is. And who should teach it? It depends. So it's very ideological. And a lot of the research focuses on heritage language schools as input-enriched environment for reacquisition of heritage language and acquisition. The focus is usually on language acquisition and literacy development. However, more recently, researchers in this area have looked into additional benefits of heritage schools, for example, their role in social integration and emotional well-being of heritage children. So actually, my colleague Lottie Hall and I recently wrote a chapter in one of the handbooks by Elgert on migration and education. And in this chapter, we identified a range of dimensions of heritage language education, including the main one, language maintenance, educational opportunity, mobility, cultural inheritance, social integration, and emotional well-being. So in other words, we're not just looking at language maintenance anymore, we're looking at a wide range of benefits of heritage language schools. So this model provides us with a very comprehensive and holistic understanding of the multidimensionality of heritage language education. So now let's have a look at the conference theme. This year's conference theme is Harvesting Support for Heritage Language Education, How to Seek and Maximize Resources. So this is the key phrase. The key phrase here is seek and maximize resources. And my answer to this question is partnerships as a resource, which is the focus of my talk. So in other words, I'm going to look at how we seek and maximize resources through partnerships. I'm going to tell three stories. The first story is about Cambridge as a city of multilingual heritage. So we're going to look at what does Cambridge's multilingualism look like? What are the heritage language schools located? And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the practice of CRiCLE, which is the network which I set up. And we look at what has CRiCLE done to enable heritage language maintenance through partnerships. And finally, in order to make sense of this experience, I'm going to introduce a theory called systems convening in order to make sense of the process. So, and also we are going to look at what are the general principles of partnership which can be transferable to other contexts of heritage language education across the world. So basically, one city, two tales. So now let's have a look at the first story. So Cambridge is well known for its multilingual resources. It has been constantly voted as one of the top places to raise bilingual children in the UK. So it is a city of multilingual heritage. So if you haven't been to the UK, you can have a look at this map. Cambridge is located in the east part of England. If you look at the greener and lighter areas, these are the areas which are less linguistically diverse. However, if you look at the darker areas, for example, Birmingham, Manchester, Leicester, and London, of course, and these are the areas which are more linguistically diverse. And Cambridge, as you can see, this little spot circled in red, is also very dark. So which means that it is super diverse. So linguistically very, very diverse, mainly probably because of the nature of the city, which attracts a lot of international migrants. And so this is a very, very well-known, the city is well-known for its multilingual heritage. So now let's have a look at the heritage language schools in Cambridge. So let's start with the population. In 2021, which is the census, the latest census, there were about 145,700 people in Cambridge in 2021. 82.8% reported English as their main language, which is 10% lower than the national average. So in Cambridge currently, there are about 33 heritage language schools and 25 languages. You might probably wonder why we have 33 heritage language schools and 25 languages. So this is because for example, we have 3 Chinese schools, 4 Arabic schools, and 2 French schools, 2 Russian schools, and possibly 3 Ukrainian schools. So there are about 2,500 to 3,000 bilingual children attend these schools these days now. So among these schools, Arabic, Chinese, French, Russian, Ukrainian, and Polish schools have the highest number of students. So we're talking about over 100, and some of them have more than 200 pupils. So there are 4 languages which are particularly worth mentioning. So they have a high number of children, yet they don't have a community school. So these is the languages that we are actually looking at. So Bengali, Malayalam, Romanian, and Urdu. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that later, but these are the languages that we are currently working with, and hopefully we will be able to help them to set up a community school for their community. And Polish and Chinese schools are among the oldest, which were established in the 1970s, I believe. So these are the 2 oldest schools. Ukrainian, Persian, and Czech schools were established more recently. So this is the general situation of the heritage language schools in Cambridge at the moment. So now let's have a look at these 2 maps. So these 2 maps showed where these heritage language schools are located. As you can see, the majority of them are located in Cambridge, and there are just a couple of outside the city. And currently there are about 33 schools and 25 languages. 2 are not shown. The majority of the schools rent the school premises on weekends, and some of them also use community centers, mosques, churches, and temples. And we also heard stories that one of the schools, maybe one of the not shown on the map, has been mobile. They don't have a permanent location, so they couldn't secure a place where they would be able to offer heritage language teaching. So we called it a mobile school. So this is increasingly, this is a very challenging issue. I'm sure that colleagues who work in this field will know this is a very important issue, a very challenging issue for all community schools. So let's move on to the next slide. So I'm going to also highlight 3 typical scenarios of the heritage language schools in Cambridge. So the first scenario is the Ukrainian school. So before 2022, there was no Ukrainian school. And however, this year, and we have 2 Ukrainian schools, and we have heard that from next year, January 2014, we will have a 3rd Ukrainian school, which is quite exciting. We have more Ukrainian school, more community language schools now. The other case, a typical scenario, is the Lithuanian school. We had a Lithuanian school about 8 years ago. Unfortunately, we have lost the school. We haven't heard back from the school. This is such a shame. This also probably shows this is a very important issue that we need to deal with. So bigger languages, for example, French, Chinese, Arabic, and Polish, they will be able to find resources to sustain the schools. However, smaller languages, or vulnerable languages, need a lot of intervention and support. And the last slide sorry, the last line graph shows the 4 languages which in theory should have a language school, a community language school. So Bengali, Malayalam, Romanian, and Urdu. However, they don't have a community school. And Bengali in particular is a well-established language, and community is also very well established in the UK and in Cambridge. However, we don't have a community school for Bengali. Romanian is the same. It is now the 2nd popular foreign language just behind Polish, but in Cambridge, we don't have a Romanian school. So we are now currently working with a group of partners to hopefully to identify families, bilingual families who are interested in setting up a school, and hopefully we'll be able to report back to the audience and in this conference that we have managed to set up a Bengali school, a Romanian school, for example. So this is the situation of the heritage language schools in Cambridge. Now I'm going to move on to the story of the CRiCLE partnership. And so about 10 years ago, I set up an initiative called Cambridge Research in Community Language Education. It was set up to provide a platform for practitioners, policymakers, academics, and research students to engage in critical debates on language, heritage, and migration. And that was set up about 10 years ago. And almost at the same time, my colleague, Dr. Anka Freitich, also set up a grassroots organization called Cambridge Bilingual Groups, which serves as an umbrella organization for all Cambridge bilingual groups to provide the sort of the more grassroots activities. So we have been collaborating with each other for quite a lot of time, and we have identified a lot of priority areas, and we have worked on a lot of activities together. So the CRiCLE, this is actually the 10th anniversary of CRiCLE. This year is the 10th year. So we have a mission, which is to mobilize the linguistic capital and cultural heritage at home, school, in the community, and the university to support bilingual children on the move. And our vision is to establish a local partnership and a World Heritage Language Consortium to promote the benefits of multilingualism, linking with, for example, the European Forum and American Coalition and the Senior Institute of Community Language Education, for example, and a global think tank, for example. So we're hoping to link the international organizations as well. So this is our mission and our vision. So one of the biggest achievements that we have managed to make in the past 10 years is that we have managed to bring together almost all heritage language schools in Cambridge. As you can see on this slide, these are the logos of these schools. So there are big school European languages, for example, French, German, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese. And we also have East European languages, for example, Polish, Bulgarian, Hungarian, Slovakian, and Czech. Also East Asian languages, for example, Chinese, Korean, and Japanese. And also languages in the Middle East. We have Persian, Arabic, and Hebrew. And we also have Russian, 2 Russian schools as well. And there's a very interesting school called mentoring, CB mentoring, mentoring for Black and minority ethnic youth in Cambridge. In theory, it is not a language school, but language also plays a very important part in the mentoring program. And we are also very delighted that 4 more schools are also joining the network, including the Ukrainian school, the Cambridge Tamil Sangam, and Cambridge Turkish schools, and Swedish Weekend School. So it is very exciting to have all these schools joining the network. And as you can see, there is a good mix of different types of schools and different languages, which makes the project even more exciting. So we have done a lot of activities together in the past 10 years. I don't have enough time to go through all the activities. However, I have highlighted several in green to illustrate what we have done so far. So one of the most popular activities is teacher training. So as we know that we need a lot of teacher training, and safeguarding and first aid training is one of the most popular topics. and particularly for young teachers and inexperienced teachers and new teachers. We also provide one-to-one or sometimes two-to-one support mentoring for managers, and to talk them through how to turn the school into a charity, and also the issues of the insurance. We also have a startup fund to support the vulnerable schools and also the new schools. So these are the schools we are really looking into. We're talking about 20 children. If a school has less than 20 children, that means it's quite vulnerable. Then we'll probably provide a lot of support to ensure that they will continue to run the school. This is a lot of work. So I think Anchor has done a lot of work in this area. And we also linked the CRiCLE network to the university initiatives, including migration, linguistics, and heritage. I'm involved in all of them, and also co-direct the Center for the Study of Global Human Movement, which enables me to provide resources for the community schools, and also through the CUP books and digital resources, and so on. And there are also Cambridge public events, which are led by parents on topics, for example, how to raise bilingual children. And also, we have also got some new developments, the Community School Leadership Forum. And this is a new development. We have managed to bring together all the head teachers and principals together to discuss priority issues and to lobby the government. So we're going to do it tomorrow. Actually, the first inaugural event is going to be tomorrow, and we bring them together. And this is the first time they actually put the name to the face, and this is really an exciting event. And finally, I'm going to talk a little bit about the future plans. So we are looking into low maintenance and cross-school activities. For example, digital arts, museums and libraries. Cambridge is well known for the resources in the museum and libraries and arts. So we are really looking into whether we will be able to mobilize the resources in Cambridge as a city to support the activities. So these are the activities that we have already done. And then based on our experience and expertise, we have distilled what we have done into the identity partnership framework, what we call identity partnership framework, including different aspects. For example, identify heritage resources in the local context, developing small targeted plans for action, evaluating practicalities with sensitivity, networking with partners with a shared vision, taking initiative to make a difference, inspiring individuals and talents to participate, transforming systems to drive change, and yielding benefits for sustainable heritage language maintenance. So altogether, we have got a general framework, identity partnership framework, to guide the practice. Now, I'm going to move on to the final part. I'm going to introduce a theory to help us to understand the practice. It is a quite substantive theory, but I hope to do it in an accessible way. So this is called systems convening and community of practice. So if you look at this slide, home, school, university, and diaspora represent different domains which have different functions, main functions. Homes are for raising children and parenting. Schools are for teaching the curriculum and education. And universities are for producing knowledge and scholarship. Diasporas are for promoting culture and cohesion in the community. So right in the middle is the CRiCLE partnership, which serves as a hub of heritage language resources. So each of this domain can also be seen as a community or a community of practice. So in other words, this is a theory called a social theory of learning proposed by Wenger. And Wenger defines communities of practice as groups of people who share a concern or a passion for something they do and learn how to do it better as they interact regularly. So they have a shared vision, they engage with each other, and they produce a lot of cultural artifacts. So if we go back to the previous slide, each of this domain can be then seen as a community or a community of practice. So in other words, they share the same vision and they engage with each other, and they also produce a lot of cultural artifacts. So our role of CRiCLE is to create and integrate the communities of practice to make it a whole. So the latest version of the theory focuses on systems or multiple communities of practice and the idea of convening. So in order to make it accessible, I have done an animated slide. If you look at this slide, so the homes, school, university, and diaspora can be seen as multiple communities of practice. So right in the middle is the CRiCLE partnership, which serves as the hub of heritage language resources. And the role of CRiCLE is to try to bring the heritage language resources to CRiCLE, and also to bring the communities and integrate them. As you can see, it serves as a hub, and it also serves as a center where we will be able to bring all the communities together. So this is what we call systems convening. So I'll just repeat a few messages. A, CRiCLE serves as a hub of heritage language resources. And then B, we want to integrate the multiple communities of practice by bringing them together. And finally, the whole process can be called systems convening. So just on this note, I want to send an invitation to the audience as well to become system conveners in heritage language education. So I draw on Wenger and Wenger's Wenger Trainer's book, 2021 book, and this is a quote. And system convener stance is both visionary and pragmatic. They look at the social landscape in which they operate, an organization, a city, and a community, a country, the world, and they see unrealized potential that exists across traditional boundaries and silos. Many challenges today require learning that brings people together across different practices, different institutions, different goals, different cultures, different loyalties. System conveners seek to enable the conversations and learning across these boundaries that are needed to make a difference. So I invite everybody in the audience to become a system convener in heritage language education. Finally, I'd end this presentation by unpacking the identity partnership framework into 4 stages in order to create impact. There are 4 stages. The first stage is thinking. So to understand the local context, aspire to make a difference, and consider practicalities and constraints. And the second is doing, second stage. Identify useful contexts and resources, develop an articulated plan for action, and communicate clearly to lobby for support. And the third stage is connecting. Mobilize individuals and groups, connect people and resources, and work with key partners and share responsibilities. And the final stage is sustaining. So we need to empathize with people in a community, improve practice based on reflection, and drawing talents for capacity building. So in other words, we need to do this in order to sustain the heritage language maintenance. So I will probably finish by saying that I really hope that you'll be able to join me to become system conveners to support heritage children on the move. And also I want to thank the organizing committee. I think you have provided exemplary sort of example to show how system convening can be done. So you have managed to pool all the resources in the communities and in different domains and create this platform. So this is system convening anyway. So you are the best system conveners. So just on that note, I just want to thank you again. Shall I stop sharing? Okay.
Thank you very much for this really interesting insight into heritage language programs and how partnership may look like, and giving us the example of how it actually works and the practice that is happening in the UK.